Welcome to the BXG Podcast, where we aim to shield you from the hellscape of social media to give you an honest and fair look at the biggest news in gaming. In the recent days, we learned that the pen is, in fact, mightier than both the Leviathan Axe, the legacy of Sir Francis Drake, web slingers, and a well-timed distractionary brick combined. As Microsoft wielded its biggest and best advantage over Sony, its checkbook, and agreeing to purchase beleaguered publisher Activision-Blizzard and all their holdings for a whopping $68.7 billion with a B dollars, or about $7 billion more than Disney paid for the rights to acquire Marvel, Lucasfilm, and 20th Century Fox combined. Microsoft intends to bundle the IP of the publisher into Game Pass as soon as the acquisition is completed, which would appear to be the end of the fiscal year 2023. The deal will make Xbox the third largest collector in revenue via video games in the world, behind Chinese megacorporation Tencent and Sony. The move has sounded klaxons around the internet, with many Xbots proclaiming the death bell for the current undisputed champion of the console space, PlayStation, while many Sony ponies are declaring that rumors of the Japanese giant's demise are being greatly exaggerated. I am one of your hosts, Brenton Beswick, and we welcome into the booth our contributing games correspondent, Charles Chambers. Devo.
What is up, Mr. Beswick? How are we doing today, sir? Big news, man. How are we doing?
The biggest news.
I have clawed my way out of the biblical snowstorm down here in western North Carolina of 6 inches. I know it's a lot to answer the call of the bat signal here for this really monumental gaming news.
Yeah.
This is big. This is big. Yeah, 6 inches.
We got that between 11 and midnight.
Well, yeah. Well, I ask people if it's a man 6 inches or a woman 6 inches, because I mean that varies greatly. But we'll talk about that later.
So, initial thoughts. You wake up, in my case, I got a text message from a buddy. Then I immediately went to IGN because I thought he was full of shit. And then you check Twitter and it's just ablaze. What were your initial reactions to that?
Found out on Twitter kind of as it was happening, as it was unfolding. Shock. I mean, I started diving into people's timelines and stuff like that. People in gaming journalism that I respect and know, some would call insiders. Nobody saw this coming. And it was so crazy that Phil Spencer just a couple of weeks ago was so adamantly about we talked about it in the last gaming podcast that so much trouble they were having, and we're going to reevaluate our relationship with Activision and stuff like that. Now, and all of a sudden, an all cash deal, just straight out of the woodworks. It's unbelievable. Honestly, we're talking big boy bucks here.
Yeah. I'm starting to think that Phil Spencer's actually Scrooge McDuck in Surprise, and he just goes around with money bags, just buying whatever.
I didn't realize what the initial shock to me was. First off, Activision is still a huge deal, which we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. But the fact that I didn't realize Microsoft had, and excuse the phrase here, I didn't realize Microsoft gaming had this kind of fuck you money.
Yeah.
To just, this is, like you said earlier, this is a big amount of money, especially all cash. It's unreal.
Yeah, and we'll get into that, I think, a little bit. I think the way that we can proceed here is from the official statement that came from the ex-boss himself, CEO Scrooge McDuck, Phil Spencer, CEO of Microsoft Gaming. He was given a promotion through this. I think I have the statement. Oh yeah. I have it in the document. Okay. So this is, and I've highlighted a few things here that we can kind of unpack, but this is on Xbox Wire. This is the official statement from CEO Gaming, Microsoft Gaming. I forget exactly what his official title is now.
Microsoft Gaming, I believe.
CEO, Microsoft Gaming. Yeah. So, okay. As a team, we are on a mission to extend the joy and community of gaming to everyone on the planet. We all know that gaming is the most vibrant and dynamic form of entertainment worldwide, and we've experienced the power of social connection and friendship that gaming makes possible. We have. We can stipulate to that.
Yeah, I'll agree to that. That's fine.
Yeah. Over many decades, the studios and teams that make up Activision-Blizzard have earned vast wellsprings of joy and respect from billions of people all over the world. We are incredibly excited to have the chance to work with the amazing, talented, dedicated people across Activision Publishing, Blizzard Entertainment, Beanox, Demonware, Digital Legends, High Moon Studios, Infinity Ward, King, Major League Gaming, Radical Entertainment, Raven, Sledgehammer, Toys for Bob, Treyarch, and every team across Activision Blizzard. So let's stop there. He kind of lists the studios they're going to be coming over to Microsoft in this deal. What if I told you that the biggest get here was actually probably King?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Microsoft has practically no presence in the mobile market at all. So you're telling me they're going to have Candy Crush and stuff like that? Like that is going to, and it's going to fold into Game Pass and stuff like that. It's going to get your people who are not your core gaming market, mindlessly playing Candy Crush and whatever other games that they have. All of a sudden, they're going to have a Microsoft login. Well, hey, why don't you try 2 weeks of Game Pass and look at all these other games you can play on your phone now and stuff like that. And it's going to be this insane gateway to their library and to more subscribers to their Game Pass for sure.
Yeah, I think that most people, if you said, what's the big get here, they wouldn't point to that. But Candy Crush is, I think, responsible for just some asinine percentage of mobile gaming. And there's a statistic out there that is malarkey that says that, some percentage that's like, I don't know, it's like 50 some percent or 60% of gamers are women, which is fine. I don't have a problem with women gamers, but I think a big reason for that is because they include things like Candy Crush.
Right. And I mean, if you want to put this next to in a bigger scope, I mean, you had Take-Two by Zynga or Zynga or however for $12.7 billion.
Right.
And they're a completely mobile company. So that's a big grab for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll trying to see if I can find an article here that lists the specific IP, but I think maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so picking up with Phil, until this transaction closes, Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft Gaming will continue to operate independently. Once the deal is complete, the Activision business will report to me as CEO, Microsoft Gaming. So we already talked to Phil, got himself a promotion. But what I would also say is that what this means is that at least for 2022, Call of Duty's safe on PlayStation.
Yes.
I would.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think I looked that their fiscal year actually begins in July of 2022. Or 2022, and then it ends in 2023. Right. So I think for the foreseeable future, everything's going to be fine, status quo with your multi-plats and stuff. But it's going to be interesting because he has made statements about how he feels about multi-platform stuff. So it's going to be interesting if he holds to his guns on that, with kind of throwing this much money around, if he's still going to stay true to that.
Yeah, I think so. And we'll kind of take a peek at that as well. Upon close, we will offer as many Activision Blizzard games as we can within Xbox Game Pass and PC Game Pass, both new titles and games from Activision Blizzard's incredible catalog. We also announced today that Game Pass has more than 25 million subscribers. As always, we look forward to continuing to add more value and more great games to Game Pass. So 25 million subscribers at what, $100 a year, give or take, depending on what program you buy into. I mean, that's a substantial amount.
That is very large.
And I think that is a big reason why Game Pass, Well, you know what? We'll just pause there because we'll get back into that. We'll get back
right.
into Game Pass. The fantastic franchises across Activision-Blizzard will also accelerate our plans for cloud gaming, allowing more people in more places around the world to participate in the Xbox community using phones, tablets, laptops, and other devices you already own. Activision-Blizzard games are enjoyed on a variety of platforms, and we plan to continue to support those communities moving forward. So that's kind of what you were talking about with the will they, won't they nature of specifically, I think the big one here is Call of Duty, because if you really look at all the IP, and we will take a peek at that in a second, but if you really look at the IP, Call of Duty is the only game that really lives at home on PlayStation. Diablo, sure, there's console gamers, but that's a PC game.
Yep.
Same thing with all the Warcraft titles. Overwatch is kind of spread throughout. There's a couple other ones in there that are definitely, when you point them out, very curious that they're going to be owned by Microsoft. Specifically, I would say Crash Bandicoot and Spyro.
Yeah, those hurt. That hurts for your core PlayStation guys. That's gotta hurt.
Right. So, but Call of Duty is obviously the big one. It's the best-selling game. Year in, year out, for the most part. There's some outliers, Animal Crossing, what have you.
Sure.
But this seems to point like, okay, we're going to leave those communities, continue to support those communities moving forward. So specifically Call of Duty, do you think that will continue to stay on PlayStation platforms, or are we looking at, if you're a Duty guy, you got to buy an Xbox or play on PC?
I think what you're going to get is, to make it worthwhile for your Xbox guys, you're going to get timed exclusives. You're probably going to have your map pack exclusive to Xbox for 6 months to a year, something along those lines. But I think there's way too much money left on the table if you make that just PC Xbox exclusive. Your communities on PlayStation are just too large. I mean, that's just too much money. And it's, you can look back at just a kind of a weird example of that, like what the MLB The Show did, like Sony did, make that multi-platform, and it was one of the best selling entries ever. You just have a bigger audience, so why leave that money on the table? Yeah, if you don't have to.
To be fair, I believe Major League Baseball forced them to do that.
They did. Yeah, I mean, that was a little bit different scenario, but the end was still a wider audience, more revenue, and you're just getting the game in more people's hands.
Yeah. I think it's different if it's some of those other games that we mentioned, Diablo, Warcraft. Those, I think you can kind of, Warcraft's never been on console, to my knowledge.
No, I don't think so.
So leave that on PC. Nobody's missing out. I do think that the Call of Duty just makes too much money, and too big of a piece of that pie comes from PlayStation. This isn't, I mean, it would just be very foolish to leave that on the table, like you said.
And honestly, Phil Spencer is, I don't know how much you've actually heard him speak in interviews and stuff like that. He's very open. Like he's probably one of the best things that happened to Xbox in forever. Honestly,
probably the best thing to ever happen to Xbox.
Yeah, and the way he talks about Sony, the way he talks about Nintendo, he wants to work with them, and it's kind of made me realize this acquisition, like when they bought Minecraft and when they bought Bethesda and stuff like that, they're spending all these billions of dollars. This is less of a console war and more of a content war. Right now, your consoles are practically the same. They're going to do 4K, 60 FPS across the board. Yeah, this is more about what is your console bringing to your TV now, instead of performance. Before it was performance and stuff like that, but that's out the window now. It's this your Netflix style service. And, I'm sure you subscribe to all kinds of streaming services too. And it's based on what's on the service. And that's exactly what Xbox is doing here. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that'll lead to some curious theories later. This is where I kind of get into, as great as Phil is, maybe there's some drawbacks to this. As a company, Microsoft is committed to our journey for inclusion in every aspect of gaming among both employees and players. We deeply value individual studio cultures, We also believe that creative success and autonomy go hand in hand with treating every person with dignity and respect. We hold all teams and all leaders to this commitment. We're looking forward to extending our culture of proactive inclusion to the great teams across Activision-Blizzard. So this is obviously addressing all of the tidal waves of bad press that Activision-Blizzard and Bobby Kotick and the board has received over the last year or so.
Yeah, and you still have a group of people striking.
Right.
The ATK group, I think that's what they're called. Mainly Raven Software and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still actively striking against this company. So yeah, I believe that's I mean, I hope so. I hope they clean all that up. And we discussed how we feel about Bobby Kotick, but in the last episode, he's kind of the biggest scumbag ever. Just a little caveat about that. When Activision got brought in, he fired everybody, like 91, 90, whenever that happened, that acquisition, he cut everybody off the top and started over. And I hope Phil Spencer does that to this scumbag, because he deserves no less.
So with Bobby, the word is that he will remain CEO until the transition's complete.
Sure.
And then he stands, I think I read somewhere, I might be off on this, but he stands to gain from this merger. And then once the acquisition is complete, I don't know if it's severance, retirement, whatever, he stands to ride off into the sunset with like $600 million.
Oh yeah, it's a sick number. And I mean, that's just how the business is, I guess. It's unfortunate, but so he's going to make out like a king.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of where I do think that there is maybe a little bit of a moral conundrum here, that Bobby and the other board members who allowed this toxic culture to be fostered over the last decade plus are going to be laughing their way to the bank because of this deal. And obviously I do think that what happened made this deal possible, because Microsoft came in with the Scrooge McDuck money when Activision stock was at an all-time, well, not an all-time low, but as low as it's been in a very long time. And are kind of saying like, well, look, you guys get rich and you kind of get to skate off of this. I mean, there's still the lawsuit and everything, and that may play into some of the legal things. But I just think that that's kind of like, you know, they saved the day for these guys and kept them from having their day in court. And I don't necessarily think that that's from a moral standpoint, but you know, capitalism, a love story.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and if you're Microsoft, you're like, oh, well, we got a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
And you know, and I think Microsoft as a whole, and even as the gaming division, I think they're large enough and stuff to kind of sweep this under the rug and probably get the striking people what they want, change the culture. I believe they can do that. So in the end, I guess it'll be a good thing. But like you said, the people at fault, the people who fostered this kind of community and culture are going to make out like kings and with little to no repercussion.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate.
Right. All right. Final paragraph here from Uncle Phil. Around the world, there's no more exciting venue for fun and connection than video games. And there has never been a better time to play than right now, as we extend the joy and community of gaming to everyone. We look forward to welcoming all our friends at Activision-Blizzard to Microsoft Gaming. So keep that in the back of your hat as we extend the joy and community of gaming to everyone, as we kind of parse through this a little bit.
Well, it's all rainbows shooting out of your asshole, you know? It's everybody's happy and great.
Cupcakes and rainbows.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot about, is this going to tread into the waters of antitrust and monopoly with legal issues? Have you looked at that at all?
I have. And there's a little caveat to that. A lot of people are okay with this. A lot of your well-to-do. Now, this is out of my wheelhouse. I don't know much about antitrust laws, so I'm not going to sit here and parrot about the rights and wrongs of it. But there was an interesting article I came across on Games Radar. that right after this was announced that this process was starting, that the DOJ and the FTC are actually reevaluating their antitrust laws and their merger guidelines right after this happened. I'm talking hours after
I hadn't
this
seen
happened.
that.
Yeah, and I don't want to be tinfoil conspiracy theory hat kind of thing,
Sure.
but with this kind of money coming around and this magically happening on the back end of it, to where this merger won't have any effect on any changes that they're going to have with their antitrust, it just kind of makes you wonder whose was in whose ear, whose emails were being read. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like, I hate to be like that, but and it goes into detail about the ins and outs of it. Like I said, Games Radar has that article if you want to look it up. But I thought that was interesting. But from what I've heard, it seems like this is going to skirt by. And man, that's crazy to see how. Well, maybe that just shows my ignorance. But
so I listened, or I guess I listened, whatever, to a gentleman, Virtual Legality, Rick Hogue. It's a YouTube channel, and he's a lawyer in I believe it's Michigan, and he kind of broke all of this down, and he said that the main thing is that there's still competitors in the marketplace, and there's still plenty of competitors in the market space. Sure. You have from developers, publishers, console holders, etc. There's plenty. There's Ubisoft, there's EA, there's Sony, there's Nintendo. The list goes on. So it's not necessarily damaging the marketplace in terms of viable competitors. That's the first thing. Second thing that he said, and this is a pretty good point, these are two massive companies. They didn't draw this agreement up on a napkin in the back of a Bob Evans. Even though
it seems like it.
They have lawyers, you know what
I
mean? And both of their legal teams would have had to sign off on this is probably going to get through. Now, the interesting thing that he mentioned, there's two maybe avenues that they could get this on antitrust or some type of regulatory thing. And the first one he said was if they are using this to justify the price increase of Game Pass. So that'll remain to be seen, obviously. And what would happen there is if that became the thing that opened up an investigation, then you're looking at emails like, okay, we're going to do this. How about we jack up the price of Game Pass from $100 to $150 a year? So that's something that might be sticky depending on what those communications were. The other thing that he said was, while the US, this is very likely to, as you said, skirt by, the EU is where it could get a little bit dicey. Their regulatory things are a little bit stricter than ours. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on in the coming months. So with the legal issues out of the way and the moral issues out of the way, we have to kind of get down to, where does this leave what I would probably say are Microsoft's two biggest competitors, certainly in the console space, Sony and Nintendo. So tackle this however you want.
Well, we'll go one at a time. Sony, you better hope Project Spartacus has some legs. You better hope that's a real thing, and that is something that is a reality for that console. And I'm not saying Sony's going to die if they don't have it or anything like that, but that is just, Game Pass has become such a feather in the cap of Microsoft and a selling point of consoles and they talk about gaming for everyone, inclusivity and stuff like that. And they preach that with Game Pass. You have every type of game you could possibly want to play on there. So Project Spartacus better be a thing. And what I worry about Sony is their reluctance to put first party games on that. I don't think they will. And if they don't, I feel like it's dead in the water. It better have an insane price point to compete with Game Pass. As far as like more acquisitions go, I don't know. Because this one was such out of left field for me. It's hard for me to wrap my head around Sony swinging for the fences too. It's like, what we touched on this on our end of the year podcast. It's like, who are you going to go acquire now? Like a Square Enix, or are you going to acquire Take-Two, or like who are you going after if you're Sony now?
So this is a complete pie in the sky thing, because just saying that you can buy somebody doesn't necessarily mean that they're for sale, right?
True.
So I crunched some numbers. This would be the ultimate counterpunch, right?
Okay.
I think the odds of this are likely to happen? No. As much as I think the odds are the same as Florida getting as much snow as I did. But it's fun to pontificate about, right?
Absolutely.
The ultimate counterpunch would be if Sony went around to all their neighbors and they consolidated Japan. And they say, you work for us now. Now, the big one there would be Nintendo, and I don't think that that's possible because that's 30 years of bad blood between those two companies.
Yeah, but they would laugh out of the office. Square,
where you get Tomb Raider, Final Fantasy 14, which is blowing World of Warcraft out of the water at this point. Some other stuff, Bravely Default, Octopath, whatever.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Square's a big one. A big one.
Yes.
Capcom.
Yeah.
Resident Evil, Street Fighter, Mega Man. Probably some other ones I'm not thinking of.
And there's already a relationship there with Street Fighter 5 being exclusive.
Right?
Yeah.
Konami. Castlevania.
That's a good library.
Silent Hill.
Yeah.
Metal Gear. I mean, and Sony's got a great relationship with this fella Hideo Kojima.
Yeah, who's that guy?
He's out there.
Yeah,
nobody really knows what he's up to these days, but
I don't think he does. Right.
Yeah, exactly. How about Sega and all their holdings?
Boy, they're really tied in with Nintendo.
Well, they are, but they're not, right? Because PlayStation gets every Atlas thing. Persona.
True.
And we get a lot of Sonic, and before they started messing around with Microsoft, we got all the Yakuzas. Sony got all the Yakuzas.
Right.
This isn't a team sport.
It is, yeah.
Bandai Namco.
Boy, that would be huge.
Dark Souls, because Bandai owns Dark Souls.
Yeah.
The IP. So you put that in with Bloodborne and Demon Souls, which is owned by Sony.
And I guess you want to include From Software too there.
Well, so here's the thing about that is they have a parent company called I'm gonna butcher this, but I'm gonna give it a shot anyway.
Go for it. You can do it.
Katawako Corporation.
Ooh. God,
Sony
I like the way
already
you said
owns
that.
almost 2% of them. And so that's where there is, and I think it's like 50% of From's games going back to their creation are PlayStation exclusive. So obviously Demon Souls, Bloodborne, but then like Front Mission, some of the other games from some further back in the day. Koei Tecmo, which already has a strong relationship with Neo, some of the Dynasty Warrior games, things like that. So the big one obviously being Nintendo. I don't think Nintendo's for sale. I don't think I don't think that what's crazy about this is that I don't think this affects them.
That's exactly what I was going to say. They could care less.
Yeah.
They could care less about this because your people who are going to play Nintendo, buy a Switch, they're there regardless.
Yeah.
It's almost like you either have a PlayStation or an Xbox and you have a Switch.
And yeah.
It's just an addition of things. So yeah, I completely agree with you. I think Nintendo, it's just another day.
Because the thing with Nintendo is like they survive almost exclusively on first party titles. And their first party titles, as great as games like Halo, God of War, Uncharted, Forza, whatever, as great as games like that sell, none of them are going to sniff Mario. None of them are going to sniff Animal Crossing, Zelda, Mario Kart,
mainline
Smash.
Zelda game. Yeah, mainline Zelda games, mainline Mario games are going to sell like gangbusters.
Yeah. Always. Just as an example, the best-selling Call of Duty game is Black Ops. It's sold 30 million units lifetime. Okay. Animal Crossing sold 33 million units in a year and a half.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The thing is Nintendo consumers show up for those properties. That's what they're there for.
Yes.
So they don't care about this,
No.
and they own the handheld space. Now, if like tablets and Game Pass become more of a thing, I guess that's a way for them to challenge Nintendo on that hill. But would you rather play a stripped down janky version of Halo on your iPhone, or would you rather play Mario Odyssey on a handheld Switch?
Right. You're exactly right.
It's kind of an easy thing.
And honestly, if you're Microsoft, and this is a pull for the mobile market for sure. That had to be a big eye in the sky for them for this deal. I think you're okay with second place here. I think you're okay if you can tuck up behind Nintendo. I think you take that as a W and just leave it at that. Because I mean, they're, like we said, they're really expanding with that and the library that they have and stuff like that. I mean, they're not going to compete with Nintendo head to head with the Switch. They're just not. Like, I don't think their mobile games are even going to sniff that. But you're going to take a little bit of that pie. You're going to take a little bit of that revenue, and I think they'd be completely thrilled with that.
Yeah, I do too. As far as Sony goes, as far as what they could get, I think that they missed on an opportunity probably to buy both Konami and Capcom. Both of those companies have seen a major resurgence in the last few years. Konami with mining their old IP and putting them out in collections like the Castlevania collections, things of that nature.
Which is great.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they're kind of like maybe on board with mining out some of their other IP to Sony, because there's been rumors for a while that Konami and Sony are secretly working on a Silent Hill game. Kojima may or may not be involved, whatever.
Right.
Capcom was hurting for certain about 5 years ago. They probably had a good opportunity to maybe swoop in and make an offer there.
Yes.
But it's unlikely now with the resurgence of Resident Evil, with the resurgence of Street Fighter as an exclusive and being really big on the esports scene. Mega Man, like I said, still in the fold there. Capcom.
I mean, you got Monster Hunter. Monster
Hunter's
blown up.
Yeah, Monster Hunter's a big deal too.
Yeah, it's crazy to think while we're sitting here discussing games and stuff like that Microsoft now, and this isn't much for me and you, if you would allow me to speak for you there, this has put Microsoft at really the forefront of your first-person shooters.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Overwatch, and now you have Call of Duty, you have Halo. This has really put them, if you want a first-person shooter, chances are you're going to buy an Xbox.
Right.
And I hope, this is my hope, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. I hope maybe this rattles the cage of Sony a little bit and we see another SOCOM or we see another Killzone. I loved Killzone. That was my jam. Yeah. And now, I mean, you have Guerrilla doing what they're doing now as far as a PlayStation studio, for them to maybe go back to revisit Killzone after the leaps and bounds they've had as a studio with Horizon, to go back to that would be insane. And I would feel like they need to do something like that in that landscape.
So they were hiring, and we all know that Forbidden West is about a month away, give or take a few days.
Is it gold yet?
As far as that, I'm not sure. They released another trailer. I'm kind of on media blackout because I know I'm going to play it, so I don't want to.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I don't really, but I haven't seen any like tweets or anything that have said that it's officially gone gold. But I think they were hiring for another project, and the way that they were advertising for the hiring process was it was going to be for a team-based shooter. And I want to say that they hired some people that worked on Siege. So I'm thinking that you're right. And there's allegedly a PlayStation event in February. And I think that we may get a look at SOCOM, because I don't think that they can challenge, even with just Halo.
Right.
They're not going to challenge. I mean, let alone Overwatch and Call of Duty. But I don't think that they're going to be able to challenge on a pure first person shooter base. So how can we kind of get into that space, but play in a different field is SOCOM trying to go that more team shooter, that that Ghost Recon kind of maybe a little bit more realistic approach. And SOCOM was a beloved franchise back in the day, and its last game kind of got killed by the PSN outage. But I think that we could see that. And that's sort of the other thing is the other part of Sony's response to this is going to be what they have cooking in the kitchen. Because we know about Spider-Man 2, we know about Wolverine, but outside of those two things, you know, we don't know what Ben's up to. We don't know what Naughty Dog's up to officially, right? We know that they are supposedly working on Factions, which is another multiplayer thing in the Last of Us universe. We've heard rumors that they're working on the Last of Us remake. We've heard rumors about a secret San Diego studio continuing with Uncharted. We know San Diego proper is going to just keep churning out the show year after year, but we don't know. There's a lot of probablys. Sucker Punch is probably working on another Ghost of Tsushima.
Right. I mean, you have God of War.
Yeah, you have God of War. But then there's, you know, what's Blue Point working on? There, you know, what's Housemarque working on? We're not sure. They just went too, so they're probably not as close to showing anything. But, you know, what's Team Asobi doing? Well, they're probably doing more Astrobot stuff, which is fine because, like, no joke, Astro's Playroom might be the best PS5 exclusive right now.
It's so good.
And that's so good. I'm not speaking like it's just.
It's perfect. It's such
the DualSense, and you know they've talked about PSVR 2, so I'm sure there's going to be a Astro's Playroom or Astrobot Rescue Mission 2, something like that.
Do you think this pushes Sony's hand for their event in February? Their event that they say they're going to have in February. Do you think this is like we have to show everything we got, or do you think they're going to still play it close to the chest?
Yeah, I don't think that it's we have to show everything we've got, but I do think if they have a shooter lined up, whether it be SOCOM like we talked about, whether it be Killzone like you mentioned, whether it be Resistance, because we don't know what Insomniac's a huge team. We know they're doing Spider-Man, we know they're doing Wolverine, but there's that team in North Carolina. I would assume that they're making Ratchet, but there's a good chance they tweet about Resistance constantly.
Yes, they love that franchise.
In the very least, just a collection, right?
Sure, you know, like a remaster collection kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think you're right. They got to show something in that space, and
I think they're
going
to show. Yeah, but then I think they're also going to show whatever The Last of Us remake, Factions, whatever. They're going to they have to pull that card at this point.
I agree.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's just unfortunate that the FPS genre brings in so much revenue that you have to even talk about this stuff, because it's true. Like it is such a huge market, and there's so much competition in that market. And for Microsoft, this is a big pull for Microsoft. Like these are big franchises that either you're going to have timed exclusives for, or you're, you know, like you mentioned, the gaming league and stuff like that. That's going to be huge too.
Yeah, and let's not forget Doom and Wolfenstein as well over with the Bethesda stuff.
Bethesda, oh my god, yeah, that's holy crap, yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, it is. It's gnarly to think about. There are, you know, there's a couple other shooters out there. There's Battlefield, it didn't do so hot. Titanfall's probably, I don't know if it's permanently on the shelf in favor of Apex, but likely I would say. You know, that somebody can shit out another Star Wars Battlefront maybe, but there's not a lot to challenge with, you know what I mean? Right. So Sony needs to at least challenge that space. I will say that the one thing is that I would actually compare this to is a little bit like, it feels like a New York Yankees thing. They've got the deep pockets. You still have to go out and win the game. Like you still have to go out and play. So if Call of Duty's a dud again next year, is this as big of a deal? You know what I mean? If Diablo 4 comes out and it's broken into a million pieces like Diablo 3 was at launch, is it still that big of a deal? So you have to deliver. That's the other thing. You have to deliver.
I think, to counterpoint that, to devil's advocate that, if you're putting Call of Duty on Game Pass day one, how many subscribers is that getting you off the rip?
20.
That's a huge, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. And other things like your Diablos and stuff like that, sure. But I mean, to be able, and they're going to do that. They're going to push as hard as they can to have those day one. And I can't imagine the pull that's going to be.
So let's talk a little bit about the franchises that are going to come. I do feel with these two massive acquisitions in both Bethesda ZeniMax and Activision-Blizzard King.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, this is on a personal level, right? I feel like Boris the Bullet Dodger in the movie Snatch, because I don't care about any of these franchises.
Great reference, by the way. Fantastic.
I'm not a Call of Duty guy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a Fallout guy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't play Diablo. If I did, I would play it on a computer. I don't play any Warcraft stuff. Like, the only one that might hurt for me, honestly, is Elder Scrolls, but that's still probably, with the way that they move, it's still probably a decade away.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So that's not, it's whatever. So the franchises, these are the 5 main Activision franchises that are going to come over. So obviously we've talked at length about Call of Duty.
Yes.
Guitar Hero.
Mm-hmm. God, please remake that. Please. Please.
No,
don't shake your head.
How DJ Hero?
A little
not
bit.
As much? Okay.
A little bit. I was okay with it.
Tony Hawk.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love the remake 1 and 2. Oh.
Right. Bigger deal than people maybe think.
Yes.
Crash Bandicoot. Weird as hell. Starts its life as a literal PlayStation mascot.
Yes.
And now it's potentially an Xbox exclusive.
Ugh. That hurts.
So strange. And just to explain that, because I just in chatting with some people, they said, well, I thought Naughty Dog made Crash. Naughty Dog made Crash. Activision published it. So they own the rights to it. Sony wasn't acquired until the Jack trilogy. They stopped making Crash games in 99 and were bought in, I think, 2001.
Also, as a side note, some of the best video game commercials ever for Crash games. Oh yeah. Those commercials were great.
Absolutely. Coincidentally, I just beat Crash 2 like a week ago from the Insane trilogy.
A nice little send off there.
Yeah. Spyro, that's the other one. Now here's my thing with that is we talked about the studios.
Mm-hmm.
What studios were not mentioned were Vicarious Visions, who worked on the Insane trilogy, and who made Spyro? Because I don't think that who rebooted Spyro. I'm gonna have to Google.
Toys for Bob.
Okay, it was Toys for Bob. They're still listed. But Vicarious Visions was folded in. They're like a Call of Duty map pack team now.
Yep.
So are they going to get saved? I don't know. We'll see. So there's the Activision franchises. Blizzard brings over Warcraft, StarCraft, Overwatch, Diablo, Hearthstone.
Yeah, we didn't even mention Hearthstone. That's a huge mobile game as well.
Yeah.
They have a big presence on mobile too. Free to play.
Yeah. King's major franchise, we already talked about Candy Crush, and then the major acquired studios, Blizzard Entertainment, King, Infinity Ward, Sledgehammer, Treyarch, Raven. Those are all Call of Duty studios. Toys for Bob, as we mentioned, made the Spyro Reignited trilogy, Beatenware, High Moon, Beanox. Yeah, I don't have my
just a quick throwaway here. When we spent a lot of time talking about Call of Duty and Candy Crush and stuff like that. From 2018 to 2020, Call of Duty, Candy Crush, and World of Warcraft accounted for 76, 67, and 58% of its net revenues, respectively. And no other franchise owned by Activision Blizzard reached over 10%.
So there you have that.
Oof, that's huge.
It's a lot of money.
That's so big.
Yeah.
It's
insane. A lot of money. So do you think that this acquisition is good or bad for gaming and gamers? It's clearly good for Microsoft, Activision, and their bottom line. But is it good for the consumer?
For the consumer, I guess it depends on who you're asking.
Right.
Somebody who has no interest in a Microsoft console at all, this is probably pretty bad. I don't know how you could spin this as a positive thing. As somebody who maybe PC games or has an Xbox, it's an absolute win. So it's really just kind of temperature checking the different fan bases here. Like, and we talked about this during the end of year broadcast of these acquisitions being so quick and so almost like a fell cleave, like just big money, no questions asked, you're coming with us kind of thing. That kind of deludes your range a little bit for these studios. Like you gotta, like you mentioned with Returnal being my game of the year, you know, you have your third person gritty, the shooter game, that's what you make, you know. So it makes you wonder if your creativity is going to be stifled with all these studios or with these lower studios under Activision-Blizzard. But honestly, I mean, if you look at this catalog of games, a lot of these things are pretty well-known IPs to begin with. You're not getting innovation from Overwatch. You're not getting innovation from Call of Duty. You know, World of Warcraft's the same for the past 70 years. Like you're not. So I don't think innovation is really going to be an issue here because you're getting the same product every year.
Yeah.
But as far as it's interesting that Phil Spencer said getting games into as many hands as possible, but then you're sweeping everybody under your rug. And I know what he meant by that with different devices, mobile, stuff like that, but it's also taking games out of people's hands, be it Nintendo or Sony. So it's such a weird tightrope. I guess it just depends on who you ask.
Yeah. I think it's bad. I just think consolidation's bad. You know what I mean? As many it is kind of the same thing as it is. You do have to kind of look at it from the lens of like sports, and I think baseball, especially because there is no salary cap, and there is no salary cap with this. You know, Sony is a $250 billion corporation, and Microsoft wipes their ass with that amount of money. So it is the Yankees against the A's, or you know, the Yankees against the Rays, or the Red Sox against the Guardians, or you know.
Sorry, I had something in my throat.
But it is kind of that. And but as I said, when we did our year-end thing, if Sony went and bought Square Enix, I would think that would be bad too, because you're taking, because it's the things, it's almost sometimes the smaller things, right? Is if Sony goes and buys Square Enix, you're taking Final Fantasy away from everybody, and you know that, but you're also taking a lot of things directly off of Switch that live on Switch. Bravely Default, Octopath, some of these other things that are exclusive, some of the Final Fantasy spinoffs, some of the Mana spinoffs, taking those out of the hands of dedicated Nintendo gamers. I just think that's bad. I think that the thing you do is you raise your own studios up from the ground, and they make quality products. And the problem there is that that's what Sony's done for 30 years. And Microsoft has had hit or miss luck with that.
Yes.
And so just like the Yankees, unable to harvest their minor league system, they just go out and buy everybody else's best players.
Right.
So I do think that it's bad for gaming. But like I said, I would feel the same way if the shoe was on the other foot and Sony was buying up some of those publishers, Capcom, Square Enix, whatever. You know,
to make a point about that, and you're absolutely right. I feel the same way if Sony was doing the same thing. I don't think this deal happens if Game Pass doesn't exist. I think that is the main catalyst here. Just having that option on there. And I honestly believe if Microsoft didn't have a program like Game Pass, this deal wouldn't get done. It wouldn't be worth the money.
Yeah. So long-term predictions, we'll just say the rest of this console cycle, because Sony has beaten Xbox 4 out of 4. It took
Mhm.
them the whole way until the end of the PS3 360 era, but they did eventually pass them.
Yes.
So is this with ZeniMax, Bethesda, Activision, Blizzard, King, is this the generation that Game Pass, obviously, is this the generation that Xbox finally turns the tide and outsells the PlayStation console with the series consoles?
I think by the end, I mean, it really depends on Sony's punchback, if they even have one planned. Because I don't know if they're as surprised as the general media about this. I mean, I'm sure they have insiders that probably had a sniff of this.
Right.
I would hope, so you would hope they would have something planned. And again, like we talked about Nintendo, they could care less.
Yeah.
They're going to keep on trucking, doing their own thing. Xbox and Sony fight it out. I mean, just with the information we have here, I don't see how Xbox doesn't surpass Sony as far as sales. Now, I mean, there's other caveats into that: availability, microchip, processor availability, all that stuff. All that out the window. Just talking pure speculation. Xbox is a better deal right now if you're just looking at it objectively, and that's I don't want to say that's unfortunate. I hope Sony has a punchback. I like the competition. I like the back and forth. But like I said before, it's less of a console war, more of a content war. What is Sony going to offer now? Well, Xbox has this infinite list of things that they have now that they're going to be available to their customers. What do you have, Sony? You have great first-party games. Sure, that's great, and they are fantastic. I don't know if that's going to be enough anymore. And it's funny, when we talked in December, and I felt like that was enough. I feel like that was even, and now I feel like this acquisition was enough to tip the tides towards Phil Spencer and Xbox's favor as far as consumer dollar goes.
So here's why I do not think that the Xbox Series machine, Series X, Series S, will outsell PS5 this generation.
Okay.
Because of Game Pass. Because Game Pass is everywhere. Game Pass is on PC, Game Pass is on your phone, Game Pass is on your laptop, Game Pass is on your tablet. You don't have to have an Xbox to play Call of Duty.
That's a fair
All you
point.
have to have is Game Pass, right?
Yeah.
So that leads me to, I'm going to read you two quotes on it, on what my long-term prediction is on how this shakes out. The first one is from a recent conversation between Phil Spencer and Ryan McCaffrey over at IGN. Ryan asked him what his thoughts are about a potential Sony competitor to Game Pass. He said, as you know, this is Phil's response, and I'm quoting here, as you know, so many of these things intertwine with themselves, from backwards compatibility in terms of a way of building out a library of games that we have shipping on PC and console simultaneously. Knowing that Game Pass is going to come and we want to bring Game Pass to multiple platforms, all of these decisions kind of stack on top of themselves. Okay. He goes on. I don't mean it to sound like we've got it all figured out, but I think the right answer is allowing your customers to play the games they want to play, where they want to play them, and give them the choice about how they build their library, and being transparent with them about what our plans are in terms of our PC initiatives and our cross-gen initiatives and other things. So when I hear others doing things like Game Pass or coming to PC, it makes sense to me because I think it's the right answer. So that was recent. That was January 17th. So two days ago. Okay. The next one is from The Verge. It's an interview with Phil regarding Game Pass. I'll get you the date here in a second. It was farther back. Game Pass relies, this is Phil speaking, Game Pass relies on third-party content. I want it to be that way. I want our third parties to have success. One of the things, going back to previous CEOs, Bill always had this good point of view that you're not really a platform until other developers make more on your platform than you do. That's one of the fundamental definitions of a platform. I think it's very smart to look at that way. I think about Game Pass as a platform. It's not just a subscription on a platform. Okay, so that was,
Okay.
like I said, the Verge, November 24th, 2020. So
Okay.
this was still the early days of Game Pass.
And I have to say they're being true to that. I mean, if that was his comment back then, to build it as a platform instead of a console or, a business exclusive.
So this is my thought based
Okay.
on these acquisitions, specifically ZeniMax, Bethesda, Activision-Blizzard, and those comments about, and those aren't the only comments that Phil's made about, they view Xbox as a platform, not a console. They view Game Pass as a platform, not a console. That is why I believe long-term, maybe not this year, maybe not next year, maybe not 5 years, that eventually Game Pass will be on PlayStation. And I think that is, maybe it's a boutique thing where it's, okay, you've got Game Pass. You've got all the Halos, except the new one. You've got all the Gears, except the new one. You get all the Call of Duties 6 months after it comes to Xbox. You get Starfield, Elder Scrolls, Fallout 6 months later. You have access to all of these titles, except the new thing. Would there be a better Trojan horse in gaming? Now, obviously, Sony would have to play ball with that.
Right.
But I think that's the thing where he's talking about, excuse me, getting it on as many platforms as possible, getting it into as many hands as possible, making a community. If you're playing Xbox games at $100 a rip on your PlayStation, you're making, that's exactly what he's talking about the developers making more money on your platform than you do. I think that this is the real consolidation piece. And maybe I'm the tinfoil hat at this point, but I think that that's what makes sense. Now, I think that you could also see it on, I think you could potentially see Game Pass on Nintendo before PlayStation, because Nintendo and Xbox seem to play nicely a little bit. Sony doesn't play nicely.
Yeah. No.
But I think that it would also be in Sony's best interest, because the way that things, okay, you could get 0% of Call of Duty sales, or you could get 30% of Call of Duty sales. You could get 0% of the action that we get with Game Pass, or you get 30%. It makes everybody money.
Sure.
That's what this is at the end of the day.
And your Trojan horse idea is not really that unprecedented. I mean, you can go back as far as a couple of console cycles when online for PlayStation used to be free.
Right.
That put consoles in homes, and now all of a sudden, we got to pay monthly for it now. Right. All of a sudden, all those online games and communities you build up, all of a sudden you got to pay a monthly fee to still participate in that, even though that was becoming the industry norm. That was where it was going. That's understandable, but that's not too far off of an idea. I don't like that idea, but it's kind of scary to think about. But I mean, capitalism, like you said, gung ho.
Right.
How is it going to line the coffers?
Yeah. And it gets it. If you get 10 million subscribers for Game Pass on PlayStation and they stay as subscribers, they would rather have your $100 annually than your $500 once. You know what I mean? Yep. That's where we're at. It's the Netflix model.
And actually, I'm kind of curious now. I don't have the information in front of me, but I'm kind of curious how EA Play does on Sony's console, because that is included with Game Pass on the opposite end. So I'm curious how much Sony makes from that. And now Ubisoft is going to have their own platform just like that. That's going to have their monthly subscription. Epic's the same way. So I'm curious what the benefit is. Like, you have two different approaches. You have Sony's approach of kind of letting people do their own thing on your console, or you have Microsoft's approach of being this all-inclusive thing for one price instead of having it individualized.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going to be a long road. I don't think that so the first thing is that this acquisition is not complete for over a year.
Yes.
And I think that it's a long time before that bears any fruit. Just the same way as the Bethesda thing has not. I think we've seen one trailer out of them, Perfect Dark, if I'm not mistaken, Starfield, but that's been in development. You know what I mean? So that's not the fruits of this labor.
And it all goes back to Game Pass. The only thing really the fruits of it is they dropped all those games on Game Pass right when it was done. Boom, they're here, they are, go at it.
Right. Yeah. So it'll be, it remains to be seen. It remains to be seen how Sony responds. It remains to be seen how Xbox or Microsoft continues to push. But I do think that I genuinely believe that is a big reason why Microsoft has gone all in, is because they, just like you said, Game Pass. Well, they want Game Pass in as many places as they can.
Yeah.
Because $100 annually is more is if you're a Game Pass customer for 10 years, that's double making you, one console. That's what they want. That's where the money is. It's the Netflix thing. And I still do think that there is some credence to the fact that Xbox is using the Netflix model, where Sony's using the HBO model, where they're offering maybe a more premium experience with some of their first party games that are pretty ubiquitously considered better than anything that Xbox has going for it.
How do you feel about their games coming to PC though?
I don't care.
Really? Don't care at all. God of War, Horizon, now on PC.
They've bled those stones dry on the PlayStation side. Horizon's 5 years old. Nobody's buying Horizon on PS now.
Right.
Not PS now, PlayStation this time. You know what I mean? So opening it up to a new community, and maybe it's the same thing as the Trojan horse thing. Open it up to a new thing. Oh, you want the new one? Well, you can only play it on PlayStation.
Right.
So it's one of those things. I mean, it's all marketing strategy and stuff like that. But
sure,
at the end of the day, whoever has the biggest checkbook is probably going to win. But that hasn't been the case. Like I said, Sony's won 4 in a row. So at least did we beat PS3? It had to have.
I think so. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now, we talked about console sales. Do you think Xbox will have higher revenue this cycle because of Game Pass? I mean, you would have to think so, right?
Net revenue?
Yeah.
Because remember, third party, they have to pay out. And sometimes those deals don't work out for them. Like
they don't pan out. Right.
Was a good example.
Right.
So I'm not sure. I mean, taking Call of Duty away from PlayStation is going to be a BFD. Definitely.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And having the show on Xbox is also, like, people don't necessarily think about that, but guess what? Check the NPD charts. It's always Call of Duty, Madden, FIFA, and the show, and NBA 2K.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As great as a lot of these games are, they don't necessarily chart as high as those games.
It's every year.
The only time really that you have games that chart are a Sony first party or Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll continue to keep an eye on it. We'll see where it goes. I mean, obviously there's the legal aspect. Will this even be approved? Probably. Yeah. But then where do things go from there? So I appreciate you coming back. I promised you'd be back. And
I know. And I mean, what better place to get your gaming news instead of two middle-aged pot-bellied guys that vehemently hate 3 out of the 4 teams in the NFL's NFC South. I can't think of a better place, honestly.
Yeah, most likely. BXG Podcast publishes at 9 a.m. Friday on Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Monday on Eastern Standard Time on podcast services around the globe. You can catch us on social media, BXG Podcast, at facebook.com/BXG Podcast, Twitter at BXG Podcast, Instagram at BXG Podcast, or YouTube channel at BXG Podcast for all of your movies, TV reviews, and occasional gaming news. I've been one of your hosts, Brent Bestwick, alongside the great and powerful Charles DeVolver Chambers.
Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for having me. Oh, baby, I love it.
Thanks for listening. Take care, friends.
Take it easy.